This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Welcome to Know the Name, Know the Genius in You, where in a single moment you can recognize your brilliance and change your life. This is a transformational hour that covers an array of topics that demonstrate how individuals use their native talents, as shown in their name, to look at the ordinary in extraordinary ways. Albert Einstein once said that everybody's a genius. Why would one of the smartest people on the planet declare that everyone is a genius unless he knew that to be true? I'm your host, Sharon Lynn Wyeth, creator of Namology Science and author of Know the Name, Know the Person. In each weekly show, you'll hear the fascinating ways other people discovered the genius in them and what they were able to accomplish. At the end of each show, you'll hear clues on how you can recognize your own innate genius. All over the world, people have many, many diverse interests. And in that vein, people have asked about different occupations and areas of life that have highly interested them. People want to know how highly successful people have managed to achieve their genius mindset by utilizing the gifts that are seen in the name, utilizing Namology Science. Some of the letters asked about how does someone express their creative talents and how does someone share those gifts with others in such a way that everyone benefits. Last week, Christine Wright introduced us to various aspects of stress, its causes, and habits that we can develop to relieve stress. Our expert tonight, Dr. Robert Wright, Jr., has also developed his genius in the area of stress and stress relief. Dr. Bob, the stress relief doctor, is an executive stress management wellness coach who helps high-achieving individuals and groups get ahead of the stress curve by giving them the tools they need to address and dissolve their habitual stress, anxiety, grief, and chronic pain. Bob is an author, keynote speaker, and co-host of the popular Stress Free Now podcast series. He earned his PhD at the California Institute of Integral Studies and is currently a faculty member there. His passionate academic goal is synthesizing and translating the findings of scholarly studies into nitric oxide and endogenous morphine research into ordinary language to help students and the general public enhance their healthy well-being. Bob is a proud graduate of the TSD program. He produced the first published study to show a correlation between grief, stress, and nitric oxide. Bob's studies break new ground since his findings demonstrate that the same psychological mechanisms needed to induce relaxation also help us dissolve pain and grief. His study bolsters the linkage between the physiological mechanism underlying relaxation response and any method which causes a relaxation response to occur. Dr. Robert Wright's name indicates that he can be quite competitive, especially as he has a tendency to strive for perfection in all that he does. His name says that he loves to nurture others, to take care of them, and when he does, he expects loyalty in return. Bob can juggle many commitments well and does well multitasking when needed. One of the challenges in his name, since we all have challenges, is to keep firm boundaries so that others don't take from him more than he chooses to share, because he's quite generous by nature. We're delighted that Dr. Wright has chosen to share with us tonight. Welcome to Know the Name, Know the Genius in You radio show, Bob.
Yes, thank you, Sharon, for having me on, and welcome to your audience and your listeners.
How did you discover your gifts? How did that come about?
Well, to be honest, Sharon, it was a process of trial and error. In terms of how I came to face the stress equation, what I like to use is the TV commercial metaphor of the hair club president. When he comes on the commercial, he says the reason I know that my techniques work is because I'm also a client. And so that is really a situation that applies to me. many years ago, I had hit the stress burnout wall so hard that I was hospitalized. And essentially what happened was one day I woke up and I was putting on my shirt and tie, and I was looking in the mirror and I said, what is wrong with my collar? I can't get the collar to fit on my tie. Well, little did I know is that I had lost 40 pounds from being stressed out, but I was not aware of it. And subsequently, I was hospitalized. And after I came out of that hospital experience, I made a determination and commitment that I would do something about my stress, or it would be or else. And that is what I want to emphasize to your listeners, that if you do not take care of your stress and stress burnout will take care of you.
Oh, that doesn't sound very good at all. But I like the part about the losing weight. I'm sure all of us would, but not at any challenge to our health. That part, Do you find most people lose weight when they're stressed, or maybe they eat more and they gain weight? Does it matter? I mean, it can be bi-directional. Of course, everyone knows, familiar with staying up late, watching all those late night commercials and eating Doritos or other high carbohydrate foods or foods loaded with salt and sugar that make you gain weight. Also, a key aspect of being stressed out is insomnia or sleep deprivation. And so, okay, let's hold that thought. And we'll get back to sleep deprivation after a break, because we need to take a break. Stay tuned to Know the Name, Know the Genius in You, which can also be heard on knowthename.com. After the break, we'll find out what the #1 health challenge in America is today. And it's not cancer. Stay tuned, because you don't want to miss this.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
How would you like to be able to read other people's minds? Well, the next best thing is here. When you know how to read a person's name, you know how the person thinks, feels, and behaves. Each letter in our name holds a key to unlock our true essence. Our name contains both our gifts and challenges in this lifetime. Nemology science discovers personality secrets hidden in the placement of the letters of our names, including the first and last impression people remember about us. Sharon shows us how to interpret the arrangement of letters as outlined in her book, Know the Name, Know the Person. Sharon Lynn Wyeth created nemology science after 18 years of research and testing her theories, and has supported thousands of people around the world in understanding themselves and others better. You'll enjoy Sharon's unique teachings as she shares her system to learn the gifts behind your given birth name. Even if you don't like your birth name, there are jewels in this book. If you're thinking of changing your name, ready to name your child, or wanting to get along better with others, this is the book for you. If you'd like to improve your relationships and change your life for the better, get the book today, Know the Name, Know the Person, or visit www.knowthename.com. That's www.knowthename.com.
Take a step back in time and discover old Florida cuisine at Marsh Landing Restaurant in Fellsmere, Florida. Enjoy delicacies such as frog legs, gator tail, catfish, and swamp cabbage, or enjoy the more traditional cuisine such as hand-cut Angus steaks, ribs, and seafood. Join us for breakfast with a southern flair featuring sweet potato pancakes, biscuits and gravy, and much more. Planning a party? Marsh Landing's private dining rooms can accommodate groups from 8 to 80 people. While you visit, enjoy the historic pictures, artifacts, and stories that line the walls. Marsh Landing is truly a unique experience. Marsh Landing Restaurant, 44 North Broadway in historic downtown Fellsmere, or visit marshlandingrestaurant.com. Marsh Landing, Old Florida cuisine at its best.
If you're a seeker, don't miss the inspiring book Shamanic Awakening, Between the Dark and the Daylight. This remarkable work chronicles shamanic counselor and indigenously trained dream decoder Sandra Cochran's 35 years of experience with diverse wisdom keepers throughout the Americas. Sandy's initiations across the British Isles, Turkey, Greece, and Egypt, combined with her knowledge of symbology, psychology, and myth, influence her dream blog and workshops. Sandy offers private readings, sacred international journeys, a meditative CD, and her book, Shamanic Awakening, to encourage you as you navigate your earth walk and create a deeper connection to yourself. Find this and more at her website, starwalkervisions.com.
Welcome back. I'm Sharon Lynn Wyeth, and you're listening to Know the Name, Know the Genius in You, which is being heard on xzbn.net and knowthename.com. Our guest tonight is Dr. Robert Wright, whose website is stressfreenow.info. Bob, before learning more about stress and its effects on our lives, we want to continue with what you were saying about insomnia before the break.
Yes, there is an epidemic of insomnia and sleep deprivation in our society. People don't always talk about it, but if you query a person and you say, well, how much sleep are you getting? And when people keep an actual sleep log, they are actually surprised to learn that they're really getting much less sleep than they may think they are. Here's an interesting thing to note about that. Many studies show that women actually get more sleep than men, but they believe that they are not getting as much sleep as they are, and conversely, men believe that they're getting more sleep than they actually are, and so that's a very interesting finding. So one key thing to note is that all the studies show that when you get less than 6 hours of sleep, or for some people 5 hours of sleep, that's when the key problems occur. So here, on a personal note, one of the things that I noticed, and Sharon, I am actually writing a book about this, that one of the keys to weight loss or dropping the weight, because I like to use that term because the mind doesn't like to lose, most people don't like to lose, but dropping the weight is sleep. And I have actually kept a sleep log, and what I noticed is that when I got less than 5 hours of sleep, my weight in the morning, I would weigh myself before I went to sleep, and then as soon as I got up. And what I noticed was that if I slept less than 5 hours, my weight went up, and then if I slept more than 5 hours, my weight went down. And as I dug into that, it was very interesting because many people, students and other people do pull all-nighters regularly in college, et cetera. And it's very interesting that what I found for myself was that if I slept, for example, 3 hours, my weight actually increased 2.5 pounds just in one night. And then the opposite was true, was that if I got 8 hours sleep, my weight went down 2 to 2.5 pounds or 1.5 pounds. And so I just want to emphasize that many people aren't aware that the sleep can be a key contributor to both weight gain and dropping weight.
So if those people pulled those all-nighters like you were talking about, did you ever do that to see what would happen with your weight?
Well, at that time when I was doing that kind of thing regularly, I didn't have any awareness of this. But here's a really, really important thing your listeners should know, that when a person stays up 24 to 30 hours, so for example, in the hospital, people come in, doctors, when they're doing their residency and internships, they regularly are up over 24 hours or 30 hours working a shift. And so if a person's blood is drawn after being up, say, 24 to 30 hours, what you discover is that the molecules circulating in their blood are the same molecules for a person that has brain damage. And when I read that, I said, oh, wow, that's very startling. And so, we wouldn't voluntarily want to have molecules like we were brain damaged. And so sleep plays a much more important role in terms of homeostasis than we give credit to. The other aspect is that there are many things that especially with the advent of people watching TV at night, many people fall asleep watching TV, and then also with the smartphones that the blue wavelength light adversely affects the circadian rhythm, and so and it has an even greater impact on men. That's what the studies show. So the blue light wavelength light from your computer screen or your smartphone, et cetera. So when I ask people, I go, do you sleep with your phone in the room? And so whether I want to believe that or not, I have seen a couple of studies which talked about, they said 47% people admitted to falling asleep with their phone. And then, as we know that, it's hard for many people. The phone has become an addiction to some degree. In fact, there was a study recently from SUNY Stony Brook, which showed that Bellevue Hospital, which is a large hospital in Manhattan, 10% of the admits to the emergency room now are cell phone related. And so that's a startling statistic.
That's very startling as a statistic. I was reading that the electrical currents that are close by, even as an alarm clock, affect us when we're sleeping, and that even our alarm clock should be across the room from us. Have you heard anything about that?
Yeah, well, basically, that's kind of beyond the scope of what I wanted to talk about. But basically, you're talking about low-level electric fields, and so there's a lot of research on that. And depending on who you talk to, that's considered to be a controversial area. However, what I could tell you that's not controversial is that along with the studies now being done on the blue wavelength light, also, if you have any kind of digital clock or those or anything that it has the red light, if that is in your bedroom and it's not covered, that also affects the circadian rhythm. And so basically, what it means is that even when you sleep the requisite number of hours, you're not getting the restful sleep. You have to enter stage 5 to actually get the benefits of sleep, and so that can short circuit that process. And when you ask people, how do you feel the next day? Do you feel rested and refreshed? And many people don't, if they're honest, and they use coffee or other stimulants to jumpstart their day or to help them make it through the day. And then there would, for many people, there's a lull in the middle of the day, and especially if they are, taking something in the morning that has a lot of sugar, they'll experience a sugar crash, and that can be like a roller coaster ride.
Yeah, to change topics for just a moment, before getting back to stress, and we want to know, America's number one challenge, I heard that you enjoy deciphering ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs. How did you ever get started in that, and isn't that hard?
Oh, you mean the hieroglyphic writing? Well, well, the thing is, I think it goes back to when we do anything that we love, actually dealing with, it's not just the hieroglyphs, it's really just studying history and ancient history in particular, and it's interesting that you would mention that aspect, because just this week in the news it was announced that in Egypt they found a new a large statue of Ramesses II in Egypt. And so I was fortunate enough to go to Egypt in the mid-1980s, and that trip was a life-changing trip for me. So, studying, I'm no expert or anything like that, but it's something that's fun, that helps me. Instead of playing Candy Crush, I like to read, and the ancient Egyptian writing is very interesting, and there's so much that we can learn about what's going on today by looking at the past. So it doesn't matter whether it's Egypt, ancient Egypt. Another interesting aspect of it that many people aren't aware. They see the pyramids in Egypt. They are not aware that the Egypt is the representation of the high culture, but the pyramids that came before that and that are older are in the Sudan and Ethiopia, and also there are pyramids all around the world. You can go to South America and Central America and see pyramids and other places. So it's a very interesting thing to be involved in, and it's just I do it because it's something that I find interesting.
Well, speaking of pyramids, Egypt gifted Rome with a pyramid, and so they have one of the stops on their subway line for anybody who's traveling to Italy. That's literally called Pyramid with an E at the end, Pyramidi, or however they pronounce it in Italian. And they built down so it would start much lower than the level of everything else because they didn't want it standing up and changing their skyline. Anyway,
I just since you brought up the issue of Egypt, I just wanted to mention this. Many people here in the United States are familiar with the King Tut exhibit that has gone around the world, actually. But what's interesting is that when you look at the history of Egypt, King Tut was actually a very minor figure. It's just that many of the artifacts that were in the other temples and tombs and pyramids were sacked, and so it's just that the King Tut, as a king pharaoh, his tomb was intact, and so. But in terms of the history of Egypt, he is actually a pretty insignificant figure.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. Now back to stress. We would think that cancer or something along that line would be America's #1 health challenge, but it's not. How did stress and the burnout that can come from stress take the lead, becoming our #1 health concern?
Well, that's a tough issue to say how it came about. But if you think about what the definition of stress is, stress on a practical everyday basis is anything that disturbs our homeostasis. And so most people are under the misimpression that stress is always negative or a bad thing, and that's not really true. Hans Selye, who is by many considered the father of stress, he laid out stress into two types, where there was eustress, that's spelled EU stress, and then distress. And so eustress is a good form of stress. So if you think about, you win the lottery, or you're getting married, it might be stressful, but that's a happy type of stress. Another good type of stress is, for example, say a student, she knows that she has an exam early in the week, and so the stress and anxiety that would come about would be acute if it would make that person study, and so that they can perform well on the exam. So the issue where stress becomes distress is when it becomes chronic. So our system, our nervous system and our brain is set up to handle acute stress, which is a temporary type stress. So if you think about it, for example, if you were driving your car and somebody cut you off and you swerve and you avoided the accident, that you implemented your reflexes, your pulse quickens, your sweating response comes up, and then after the emergency is over, then your hormones and neurotransmitters would go back to normal. The problem with chronic stress is when it's reactivated repeatedly, and then that's when it can lead to a disease state and illness.
Oh, that just sounds scary. So can you, in just 30 seconds, tease us for just a minute on what are some simple, really easy ways to relieve stress? We only have 30 seconds.
Okay, so one of the things that we know that works is controlling your breathing. Another thing that works that may surprise people is humming. The simple act of humming. All the recent studies show that when you hum, it spikes your nasal nitric oxide by 1,500%, and so that will relax your facial muscles. If you keep humming, your neck and your shoulders, and so anything like that we can do very fast. Reflexology. You can be working on your
take
can.
another break, stay tuned to Know the Name, Know the Genius in You. This show is dedicated to stress management. After the break, we'll find out the worst thing that can happen to you when you don't pay attention to your stress.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
There's a legend shared by many indigenous cultures of a time when the nations were cast to the four corners of the world. Each nation was given a body of sacred knowledge that held a different portion of the truth to preserve. True reality could not be known until all the nations reunited, combining the information. If a single one was missing, the world could not be reborn and darkness would prevail. The Science of Magic Radio is dedicated to reuniting this sacred knowledge. With the understanding, none of us has all the answers, but together we can open new perceptions and possibilities. Through our combined vision, the world can be reborn into a place where darkness no longer prevails. Join me, Gwilda Wiyaka, and the Science of Magic daily on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, xzbn.net, or visit us at thescienceofmagic.net.
Gibbs A. Williams, Ph.D., is a practicing psychoanalyst, supervisor, researcher, and author in New York City. Much of his life has been dedicated to understanding nature and the uses of meaningful coincidences or synchronicities. His radical and original non-Jungian, non-mystical, non-magical theory of synchronicities illuminates much of the fog surrounding this challenging and perplexing topic. His ideas and manners are fresh, presented in a style that is both entertaining and highly informative. He is also an expert on crisis intervention, specially focused on violence reduction for the police and citizens, mastering anxiety, frustration, and stress without the use of medication, and effectively preventing and treating heroin addiction. Dr. Williams can be contacted at his email address at gwwilliamsny11@aol.com or visit his website at Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
True healing must address 4 levels: physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual, for us to live joyful and productive lives. We tend to treat 3 of the 4, leaving the spiritual languishing. If you're tired of the same dysfunctional patterns cropping up in your life, Soul Balancing is for you. Trixie Phelps, owner and founder of Soul Balancing, is a naturally gifted energy healer trained in numerous esoteric forms, including shamanism. Trixie has created a powerful modality that safely and effectively clears your energetic field. A soul balancing session can remove interference, heal trauma, and restore your hope. Contact Trixie for a life-changing long-distance session today, www.soulbalancing.world.
Welcome back. I'm Sharon Lynn Wyeth, and you're listening to Know the Name, Know the Genius in You. Our guest tonight is Dr. Robert Wright, whose website is stressfreenow.info. Bob, before the break, we teased our listeners with finding out what the worst thing is that can happen when we don't pay attention to our stress. What is that?
Well, it's not just one thing. There's stress and there's also stress burnout. And so, as you can imagine, the burnout is all the way at the other end of the continuum. That's like when you hit the wall. But essentially, there are a few key points to note. When you get stressed out, the stress can almost automatically lead to you making avoidable mistakes. That could be something as simple as cutting your hand on a can or reaching for something and you drop the plate because you're stressed out and you're not paying attention. So the stress has a tendency to change how we pay attention, and so we can have additional mistakes or avoidable accidents, and that is a key thing that in hindsight sometimes we'll say, oh wow, I wasn't thinking, and then you had a car accident or you weren't paying attention and you slipped and fell where you would not have. In the worst case scenario, it would be you're driving your car or operating some machinery or equipment, and it could lead to a deadly injury to someone else, or it can result in your own death, unfortunately.
Wow. Anxiety seems to be on the rise, and it's now affecting 18% of adults, according to Johns Hopkins Health Alert. Some worrying is natural, like, do I have enough money to pay the bills, which the average adult worrying, according to Johns Hopkins, is 55 minutes a day now. And that seems like a lot of time every day. But then Johns Hopkins Health Alert goes on to say that people with GAD or general worriers spend 300 minutes a day or 5 hours a day worrying. That leaves me wondering what else they have time for, if anything else, if they're worrying about everything. And then, according to the Anxiety and Depression Association of America, anxiety disorders are the most common mental illness in the United States, with 40 million Americans over the age of 18 being affected by anxiety, roughly 18% of the nation's population. And of those 40 million people, almost 7 million of them suffer from just worrying, what we're talking about now. And then there's different kinds of worrying, like social anxiety disorder or depressive disorder and post-traumatic stress disorder. Bob, what can these people do for relief?
Well, before I address that, I just want to back it up a little bit, Sharon. A key statistic from the National Institute of Mental Health is that, as you mentioned, is that approximately 40 million Americans, or 18% of all adults, have anxiety disorders, and that number does not include people under 18. So that's so it's as we know, if you talk to any teenager or young child that's being tested, et cetera, or is on social media, they have a lot of anxiety too. One of the key aspects that people aren't aware of with anxiety is that more people visit the doctor for anxiety disorders than for common colds. So that's actually pretty startling. And then the other issue is that for anxiety disorders, the age of onset starts at 11 years old. So that's pretty young. And another key thing is that about women are 60% more likely to experience anxiety in their lifetime than men. So there are many things that you can do. It depends on the perspective. The traditional perspective in terms of what anxiety is, and again, let me just back that up a little bit. Anxiety is actually a category of stress disorder because it's actually overarousal of the adrenals. And so whether the person is ruminating or catastrophizing, basically, if you think about it, when a person has an anxiety issue going on, they are not in the present moment. And so part of the solution can be for many people is to show the person how to become fully present. So if they're not thinking about the past and they're not thinking about the future, they're just in the present moment of now. And so that is in part what's behind, all the mindfulness training that's been sweeping the country, which I think is a very good thing. On the other hand, there are many people, the traditional view of anxiety is that there's an imbalance in the brain chemistry. In order to control that, they would need medication. And so, but the point is that the parts of the nervous system that get extra excited when a person has anxiety would be the pituitary glands, the adrenals, and the amygdala, which is the center of our fear system. And then in the traditional approach, basically what the belief is that if the imbalance is due to an imbalance with norepinephrine or serotonin or GABA. So, but not everyone takes that view. A different view is that the way we pay attention that normally a person is paying attention in a very narrow, objective, focused way. And so when you learn how to modulate your attention, that can help to decrease and dissolve the anxiety. There is also, I don't know if your listeners are familiar with the heart math method, but in that method, it's basically saying that anxiety is a habit. And so as we learn how to increase our relaxation response or learn how to relax on a regular basis, the anxiety can dissolve. And if you think about it, when a person would be anxious, regardless of whether it's a phobia or social anxiety or OCD, that it's the opposite of relaxation. So the whether there's an imbalance or not biochemically, that if the person can be taught how to relax, that's going to improve their outcomes on their anxiety disorder.
Now, Louise Hay, in her book, How to Heal Yourself, states that anxiety is simply a fear of the future. But from what you're saying, that sounds like an oversimplification. Would you agree?
Yes, I think she's on the right track, and I like a lot of the things that Louise Hay has put out, and she has an amazing story. Her own story is just amazing, and so it can be, I like to frame it, there's not a one-size-fits-all here. So, for example, a person that's having PTSD, the source of their anxiety is maybe different than the person that has a social anxiety disorder. And so a person that's ruminating, their situation may be different than the person that's catastrophizing. So it just may depend. We're all unique individuals. So this is where getting professional help and or working with an experienced coach, they can help you to tease out what may be going on. Some people may need medication because they have an imbalance that needs to be corrected. But other people, I always like to say, try the easiest thing first. I remember years ago, I was having a problem with the washing machine, and when the mechanic came, I said, "What are you going to do?" He said, "I'm going to do the easiest thing first." And I said, "What's that?" He said, "I'm going to check to see that the washing machine is plugged in." I know it sounds funny, but how many people have had a problem with their car? They get in and the car won't start. And when was the last time you checked your gas gauge? And so that is actually the simplest thing. Most people go to, "Oh, my battery's dead," but suppose the car has no gas.
Right, that would be the simplest thing to check. Can stress or anxiety cause chronic health concerns?
Yes, all the time, and so the statistics are quite alarming. I want to just bring up this point to your audience that basically it's not just stress and anxiety, but it's also chronic pain. Over 100 million people in the United States have some form of chronic pain, and worldwide it's reported that it's 1.5 billion people. So what we generally see, Sharon, is that the stress, anxiety, or pain could be interrelated and wrapped around. So it's like if you think of a person that says, I want to stop smoking, I want to stop drinking, I want to lose weight, and I want to start dating. And so generally what happens is that if you address just one of those, it has a tendency to improve the others. So for example, if you figure out how to lower your stress, then sometimes that your pain and anxiety will go down. If you have an anxiety issue and you address that, you may find that helps your sleep and it reduces your stress and or your pain, etc. So these things are interrelated because if you think about the human system, we're if you look at it from a holistic standpoint, it's not just either or, it's usually and. And so as you create a benefit in one area, the benefits tend to flow into the other areas.
Any chance that any of this is hereditary?
Yeah, there do appear to be, especially, well, let me say this. In terms of anxiety, they really don't know exactly, what the cause might be. However, that it is known that there could be a genetic component, where it runs in families. However, what I will say is the exciting thing, the new science is really showing that there's an epigenetic aspect, which is where your cells are intelligent, your nervous system is intelligent, and so despite whatever your DNA is or your genetic makeup, you can the nervous system and the brain is plastic. And so as you learn to lay down new neural pathways and do different things. So, for example, like with Feldenkrais or with Alexander technique or ideokinesis, which Christine demonstrated last week, that these things can change how the nervous system interacts. And as I said, anxiety is actually a hyper form of stress, although it's teased out separately. And so as you get, it doesn't matter how you get control of it, as you lower your allostatic loads and move towards homeostasis, it's just we're talking about a rebalancing of the system because, our bodies are intelligent.
Again, we're down to just a minute. So in 1 minute, I'm curious, how do you know your stress relief techniques work?
Well, as I said in my introduction, I know they work because I've been using them for over 40 years on myself. And when I do work with clients or whenever I do a presentation, I have people coming up to me who have had tremendous stress, tremendous anxiety, or tremendous pain, and often their stress, anxiety, and pain in less than 30 minutes it dissolves. And so that's how I know feedback from people real time as well as with myself.
Great. We need to take our last break. Stay tuned to Know the Name, Know the Genius in You on xzbn.net and knowthename.com. After the break, we'll find out what Dr. Robert Wright has in his name that has assisted him that you may have in your name as well.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN-TV. For more information on the X Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
I am Dr. Carl O'Helvey, founder, president of a new cancer foundation focusing on evidence-based physical, mental, and spiritual interventions, including natural cancer cures, prayer, meditation, affirmations, nutrition, and other related holistic cancer prevention and cure modalities. These are used in cancer education, research, and financing care. I ask for your help to continue this important work by donating at www.holisticcancerfoundation.com.
Wouldn't you love to know the secret to everything? I'm Dr. Kimberly McGeorge, and on The Secret to Everything, we will merge the practical with open investigation into all realms of the mysterious. We will talk to cutting-edge alternative health practitioners, those who inspire and motivate you in business and life, and of course, we will share stories of the paranormal, conspiracy, and cryptozoology. You will transform because of the frequency I carry, the frequencies my guests carry. Life may never be the same after you listen to this program, for the secret to everything is for you, the listener, for those who desire more in every area of their lives and believe that it can still be found. Listen and discover thesecrettoeverything.com.
Little children aren't the only ones afraid of the dark. Millions of soldiers return from war zones with PTSD, anger, frustration, fear, and loneliness, much of which surfaces during the darkness of the night. You have the chance to change the lives of these American heroes. Songs and Stories for Soldiers.us provides free MP3 players for these men and women. With a list of 3 million songs in 16 different styles, 100,000 audiobooks, and 30,000 old-time radio programs, every veteran can find something to soothe and comfort them at no cost. All our players contain an 8-hour audio program designed to help veterans fall asleep. With 1,500 plus vets now participating, it's our goal to deliver 10,000 audio players this year. Go to our website at songsandstoriesforsoldiers.us. Help us help a veteran make it through the night.
Welcome back. I'm Sharon Lynn Wyeth, and you're listening to Know the Name, Know the Genius in You. Our guest tonight is Dr. Robert Wright, whose website is stressfreenow.info. He has taken his skills to a level where he's able to identify reactions to stress and what to do about stress so that it does not affect one's health and happiness. Bob, I read in Elements of Behavioral Health that 30% of people with anxiety disorders don't get any help. So there's a lot of people out there with stress that are not getting help. What can you offer them right here and now that might benefit them?
Well, I can, for your listeners, I can do a brief demonstration of the open focus technique. But before I do that, I just wanted to mention, because many people that have anxiety feel that they're alone, and I just wanted to say that there are many celebrities that have wrestled mightily with anxiety. So, for example, Kate Moss, Oprah, Beyonce, Taylor Swift, Britney Spears. Some of it's just amazing that even Johnny Depp, they talked about having problems, panic attacks, etc. So I just want your listeners to know they are not alone. And so if you allow me, I would be happy to demonstrate an open focus technique for anxiety.
Sounds great. Please do.
Okay. All right. So listeners, since this relaxation exercise has the tendency to make you slightly drowsy. If you're operating any kind of equipment that requires keeping your attention or driving a vehicle, please don't do this exercise at this time, since it might have the tendency to make you drowsy. Also, this exercise is educational in nature, and it's not meant to serve as any form of medical advice or therapy. So please consult your medical practitioner before performing any exercise. With that said, take a moment now to relax your posture. And when you are able to, please close your eyes. Can you imagine the space inside of your mouth? And as you become aware of the space inside of your mouth, can you imagine the space inside of your left nostril? Is it possible for you to imagine that as you inhale naturally, your breath begins to fill your body with space, and equally and simultaneously, as you exhale naturally, your body is left filled with space, surrounded by space, permeated by space, right where you are. Can you imagine the space between your thumb and your forefinger on your right hand? And as you become aware of that space, can you equally and simultaneously become aware of the distance between that space and the space between the toes on your left foot? Can you imagine the distance between the tip of your chin and the bridge of your nose? Is it possible for you to imagine the space in which your anxiety exists, resides, and occurs? And as you become aware of that space, can you imagine that you can get a sense or visual image of your anxiety, of the thickness, the width, and the space your anxiety occupies in your body? Can you imagine approaching the edge of your anxiety? And as you approach the edge of your anxiety, can you imagine that you can become aware of the center of your anxiety? That is the place in which your anxiety is most intense. Can you imagine that as you inhale naturally, your breath flows up right through the core of your anxiety? That is the place in which your anxiety is most intense, neither resisting nor rejecting your anxiety. And equally and simultaneously, as you exhale naturally, can you imagine that your breath flows down right through the core of your anxiety and out through your body wherever it wants to go as it dissipates? Can you imagine opening your attention or awareness and simultaneously be aware of the core of your anxiety? That is the place where your anxiety is most intense, and simultaneously become aware of the sounds in your environment, any smells, and the space in which your body occupies if you are seated or lying down. Can you imagine hearing silence and the space in which silence exists? Can you imagine repeating this exercise 2 or more times per day? And when you are ready, please open your eyes.
You know, when you were saying, can you imagine hearing silence? All I could think of is how many people, and I'm probably mispronouncing this word, but tinnitus and the ringing of the ears, and how many of those people would love to have that silence
Yes.
compared to the ringing in their ears.
Yes.
Bob, thank you for doing that with us. If you could change one thing about people's understanding or how they look at the world, what would that be?
That would be almost what the serenity prayer is, to control the things that you can, and then to notice the things that you can't and be able to let them go. And then the obvious thing, which is not to sweat the small stuff, because much of it is small stuff. All too often we get caught up in a pet peeve, or something has to be a certain way. And then when we reflect back, we realize, hey, that wasn't so important. So my final thought would be to think of today as the gift that it is, because that's why it's called the present.
Is there anything else that you're currently working on that you'd like to share or talk to us about?
Yes, what I'd like to say is that I'm working on a signature work on the nitric oxide spiking, and essentially the most important part is that is the key to wellness and well-being, and so that it generates an elevated relaxation response. And when we have anxiety, pain, or stress, that means your nitric oxide level is flatlined somewhere. And when we are in a blissful state, we're laughing or having fun or smiling, that our nitric oxide is spiking. And so I'd like to, so that is what I'm working on, is to be able to translate that research, the scholarly research, into language that an average person would understand and want and get excited about, because nitric oxide is the signaling molecule that makes Viagra and Levitra work. And so it's very exciting, and I hope to bring that to the market and to help make the world a better place.
Sounds fabulous. Thank you for sharing your work and your knowledge with us tonight. This is Dr. Robert Wright's work, and who we've been speaking with, and his website again is stressfreenow.info. Bob excels at assisting others cope with stress. This is a result of him striving for perfection and finding solutions. Seeking perfection is found in the letter combination of RT in Robert. If your name has an RT combination in it, you too could be a perfectionist and wishing others were also. Do you know where your genius lies? I'm Sharon Lynn Wyeth, host of the radio show, Know the Name, Know the Genius in You, which can be heard every weekday at various hours right here on xzbn.net radio, an X-Zone radio station, and on knowthename.com. Tune in to hear the fascinating ways people discovered the genius in themselves and what they were able to accomplish. In each show, you'll hear clues on how you can recognize your own innate genius. For all days and times of Know the Name, Know the Genius in You, please go to the website. And if you wish to know how to read a person's name or more about your own name, go to knowthename.com. This is Sharon Lynn Wyeth, signing off.